For starters, how do you get a picture into your image? Well, through File, Open. You look through into the folder that you've created where you've got your pictures, and then you would select the object and hit Open. Still another way, here's a folder that I've created with some photographs inside of it, and if I'd like to open up one of these pictures, I can simply have Photoshop open, the palette's on top, left mouse button grab and drag and let go. And what will happen is it will open the picture and create a new tab at the top here. So there's my original picture I opened up, and there's the second picture that I've placed in. A third way we can work is go File, Browse, and Bridge. Now with Bridge open, you're able to maneuver through all the various locations you might have your photographs. They'll show up inside of your favorites area here. And by simply selecting on a folder, so I'm inside of my pictures right now, and I picked a folder called Ogo Logo Gym, and these are the contents inside of here. I can select any one of these, shows me the photograph, and it gives me a bunch of information here. And as you later on get better in Photoshop, some of this will become quite important. But what's more important, if I want to bring this into my Photoshop, I simply have to double-click on the image, and it will go back to Photoshop and bring it in. Now, if you just want to start a blank document, File, New. Now here you give an opportunity to be able to name it. Presets are quite handy, so if you're trying to create something that is simply 8.5 by 11 with a high resolution, 300 is printing resolution. Most of the images that you're going to get off the internet are going to be 72, which is not very good for printing. It'll be quite fuzzy. And color mode, RGB is the color mode most recommended to be used in Photoshop, and that's because all of the filters will work with that. But you can change at this point to CMYK, lab color, just straight black and white grayscale, or a bitmap. Right, but I'll keep mine in RGB. And then background, you have a choice here whether or not you want it white, or whether you want to go with a transparent. Okay, and I'll stick with white for now, and then just simply hit OK. Now once you have several pictures open, if you want to group them together into one, what you need to do is simply click on the tab. There's the photograph I'd like to place into my sample. If you hold Control down on your keyboard and hit A, what it will do is it create these marching ants, or a marquee around here. I call them marching ants. And now it's selected the whole picture. That's what A is short for, all. Copy it by going Control C. Now I'm ready to paste it. So if I go to my sample, I hold Control down and hit V for paste it down on the surface, and you can see, there we go, we have our picture added into it. Now, still another way we can bring this in, let's go back to our original image. Now, by the way, these marching ants, if you want to get rid of them, when you have some kind of a selection, hold Control and hit D for deselect. All right, so if I want to bring this picture in, still another way, I could take the background word, the tab here, and drag down. So I've literally separated it off there, and now I'm able to take my image, left mouse, click on it, drag to my picture, and let go. And there we go, it's inside of that image. Now, while we're working with these tabs, if I would actually like this photograph to go back into the top part here, I can grab the word background here, go up until I see it turn blue, let go, and it snaps back into place. Now, while we're talking about, again, these tabs, over on the far right, there's a lot of palettes with many more that aren't even exposed at the moment that we use in Photoshop. Under Window, I can see a check mark beside the ones right now that are opened up. As you can see, there's a number of them that are not opened at this point. Now, as beginners, let's actually eliminate quite a few of these. They're all useful and wonderful palettes, but we only need a few to work on right now to understand just the basics. So I'm going to go to where it says Layers. This is really a critical palette that we need. I'm going to click on the word Layers. I'm going to drag it out. And then I'm going to go to the right corner, and I'm going to go Close Tab Group on that one. And just for now, the Adjustment and Masks, also I'm going to close that tab group, and once again, this final one on the side. All right, now one other one that's very useful at the beginning, under Window, I'm going to take a look for where it says History. And I'll show you why in just a little bit, but grab the word History, yank it out, and then where Layers is here, let's bring it in. I see it go blue, I'm going to let go, and now I can toggle between these two. I'll close my actions up, get it out of the way, and there we go. I now have Beginner's Palette, and just so that I've got it in future, under Window, I can see Workspace, and here I've got Save Workspace. So I'm going to do that, and then I can call that my Beginner's Palette, or of course anything you wish. I will then hit Save. If at some point in time any of these palettes accidentally got closed, what I could have done is gone Window, Workspace, and either bring back my beginners by simply going here, or go to My Essentials to bring back all the rest of them. You can see we're back to square one. We got them all back, but perhaps I would like to have my actual beginner's palette. And there we go. I've got my beginner's palette all set up for me. All right, now at the top of the menu bar, there's another quite useful area where we can use under Image for doing some adjustments. Now, before I do that, let me open up something that we can do a little adjusting. I'm just going to hit Open and just change that so I can see the picture of me. There we go. Now, once this is open, the first issue you're going to have in a number of cases is pictures that are sideways. So how do we correct that? Under Image, Image Rotation, you just have to decide whether it's clockwise or counterclockwise. And there we go. We have that all corrected up. Under the same area, we can do things like image size. So here, this is a great way that you can check to see how large your picture is. If you're trying to email this is a fairly big image. Perhaps inches is not how you would read an image comfortably, but centimeters. This is 25 centimeters by 33 centimeters. So it's a fairly big image. Its resolution is excellent, 300, and that's what you want for printing. But we need to make this smaller if we're, for example, emailing. I would probably, if nothing else, take my resolution here and type in a 72. That's all you need for viewing on a typical computer screen. Hit OK. You can see it made quite a difference. But if I enlarge this to full size, it still looks the same. It hasn't changed anything. And here's where that History tab comes in handy. Change your mind. The last thing on the bottom is the last thing you did. So if I want to go back to the original, I can click on that. And you can see how much bigger that appears to be now, closed in. If instead I'd like to go back to where I rotated the canvas, then I can rotate the canvas to that size. Now in the same area under Image, what we could do is go also to Canvas Size. So with Canvas Size, what we're dealing with here shows you the dimensions that we have right now, and it also shows you that we can expand. So if I would like to add some more space on the left side, for example, maybe type in a title, I can shift over my image, go to my width, instead of 10 inches, maybe I want to add a 2-inch band on the side, and when I hit OK, we end up with a 2-inch band on the side, and I can now add some text into that. Now we've been using the selection tool all this time. I'd like to come back to that and explain some of what you see up here. You see in Photoshop, every time you select a tool, everything along this band here affects that particular tool. And you might also notice that there's a little black triangle on some of these. When you click and hold down, you can get access to other features. So for now, I'd like to go to what's called the rectangular marquee, and let me just select a little bit out of the picture. I'm going to copy that, Control-C, and let's go to our sample image that we were working with, and I'm going to paste it, Control-V. Okay, and the reason I did this is we're going to start looking at what does layers mean. Let me just pull this down here so you can expand it, and you can see that now I have 3 of what they call layers here. We have the original background, which is just white. If I click on my background picture here, you can see it had only 1 layer, and in fact, if I paste, still had in memory that thumb right there. You can see it forms right away another layer. Checkers around here is transparent, so there's nothing there. As you can see through it, see the background. See, I'm able to move with the selection tool that one object. Let's take a look at the stuff at the top here with the selection. I've got right now auto select checked. You'll get a better idea of what that means if I were to paste another one of my pictures here. So if I go to auto select, notice right now the last picture I put in here is highlighted. If I click on the previous hand, now it's highlighted. With that unchecked, I have to manually select each of these layers to be able to move it. Okay, working in layers is like working with a sandwich. That's why I designed this here. A whole series. We got the top on the pickles, the tomato. Oh, it says layer 1 here. How do we change just the name of a layer? Just to keep ourselves organized. If you double click inside of the area where the text is, you can write what it is. So there's a cheese layer here. Now, I'm telling you there's cheese there, but you can't even see it because we got the bun in the way. If you want to move this, I can select that layer. I'm now able to move it. Once again, with auto select checked, I'm able to then grab just the cheese if I want by clicking on the word cheese, and it automatically went down there. Without that selected, I would manually have to grab the layer. Now, in addition to that, I can move layers around. So if I take a look right now, the top bun is kind of in the way. And in fact, why don't we do this? See the little eye right there? I'm just going to click on that. You can hide layers temporarily. It's still there, haven't destroyed it. I can see the image right there. But I am able to now access the other ones. So if I'd like to take the tomato and move it, the pickles and move it, I'm able to do so. Now, if I want the pickles underneath the tomato, it's as easy as this. There's the pickle layer. Click, drag, and down we go. How about with this tomato? Opacity. I want to make that a little more transparent. You see it's turned into a ghost. All right. There's a little button up in here. If I click on that, we could do things like duplicate a layer. We can delete layers this way. But this is kind of useful too. Under panel options, you might notice that in your Photoshop version, your pictures are much smaller. I'm actually on the medium setting right now. You probably by default are on this one. You can see the difference in the image. So for those of you that would like to be able to see this a little bit easier, if you simply click on here, go to your panel options, you can then maybe perhaps even use a larger one. I'm getting that way with my eyesight. I'm going to need perhaps some larger images to be able to see that. How about deleting layers? Well, it's this easy. Either I can drag it straight to the trash can, right? Or I can just hit delete on the keyboard. And that's the easiest way to do it. I could have, hopefully remember this, we could go to delete layer up there too. It's more steps. I'm lazy. I just picked a nice easy way of deleting it. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to make this a little smaller. All right. How do we make objects a little bit smaller? Here's another shortcut. Holding Control, hitting T on my keyboard, I now have the transform tools. And if I go to the corner, I can now free transform this around. If I want to keep this in proportion, I'm just going to undo what I just finished doing. Control Z is undo. I'm going to hold Shift while I drag. And when I do that, you can see it stays proportionate. Once I've got it in the size that I would like, I can now hit Enter on my keyboard, and it'll keep that size. What I'm going to do now is just quickly make a few more duplicates of this. All right. Now, how did I manage to make that many that quick? Well, all I did is I held Alt down and I dragged. And as soon as you hold Alt and drag, it creates a duplicate layer for you. So here we have a whole bunch of hands that we've created. And let's say we want to do some lining up with these hands. Okay. In fact, let me just get rid of that last layer. So I've got 4 of these that I've worked on, and I want to start getting them to line up a little bit neater on here. How can I go about doing that? Well, what you can do is you can select the layers that you want to affect. It's this layer, and I'm just going to hold Control to select the other one. And now I have the option of being able to use some of these buttons. So if I would like them to line up at the top, I can click that. You can see this one just realigned itself. Now if I would like the bottom one to match the side of this one, what I can do is simply select the bottom image. I can take a look. I also want to affect this one. And once again, go over to the side. And there we go. We've now adjusted the side there. So you can use these features of the buttons to help align layers together. All right, back to our toolbar right now, and let's show you another tool here. So here we have the cropping tool. Let's just say that, as an example, I created this white background for you. And let's just say that I've got an image and I want to change its size or select just a particular part of it and make that the image. So all I would do is I would go to the corner, drag down. I can readjust this if I want to, just by dragging the end corners. And then when I'm happy, I just hit Enter on my keyboard, and I've created my new image. If you want to fill the screen quickly with the image you've got right now, if I hold Control and hit 0, that's 100%. So it's gone to 100% size. Now let's take a look at this second tool here called the marquee. Once again, anytime you select a tool, everything that affects it is up here. All right, now these are really important, understanding them, because they're the critical way of being able to select and cut out objects in Photoshop. So right now we are on what they call new selection. Basically, when I select something, if I change my mind and select another area, the first marquee disappeared. All right, so it allows me to select only once anytime I do that. If I go to the next one, this is add to selection. So I can keep dragging and select maybe a more interesting area. The next one is take away. So if I decide I don't want that, or for whatever weird reason I don't want the knuckle right there, right, it'll take that away. Just to show you that it's doing that, I've got my marquee, my marching ant set up. It's on the hand right there. I can see the layer I'm on. I'm going to copy that, Control C. I'm going to paste, Control V. A new layer. Let's hide the other ones. So there we go. You can see that I now have the hole missing inside of it, and I've created this edge. I'll just delete that layer. Let's bring back this so we can keep going. Back to the rectangle marquee. So we've got this kind of figured out. Didn't show you this last one. Let's see what that'll do. All right, so let me just create really quickly a couple of shapes. Great. Now, what this is intersection. So if I decide that I would like to have this area right here, I don't know, that far, when I let go, keep in mind all the marquee around the outside and watch what happens to it. Right, so what it does is it intersects the selection that you created. So every time I get rid of my marquees, I'm holding Control and hitting D for deselect. Now let's take a look at feathering. All right, so I've got add to selection, no feathering right at the moment. Let me select a part, copy and paste it. Let's have a quick look. So nice and clean edges, straight corners. Easy enough. Go back to this layer. Why don't we add a 10 for feathering here? All right, same rough area. Do you notice something's changed? Rounded corners here. Let's copy it, paste it. And you can see now, there's the difference here with feathering. We now have a nice soft edge. Now that feature feathering appears in a number of places. Right? This is the different kinds of lassos that are available, and feathering is an option. And you'll see a few other places that it'll appear too. So that's how you can control softening the edge. The bigger the number, the greater the softening. Okay, get rid of these two layers for a moment. Now, bring back this one layer. By the way, just a really quick note here, if I had a number of layers here, if I hold down Alt and click on one eye, what it'll do is it'll hide all the other layers so that I can continue working on the one. So that's what I'm kind of doing in the background. If I want to bring back my layers, I can hold Alt, click on the eye again. Okay, so let's just hide the rest of them so we can see what we're doing here. And the rectangle marquee has underneath it another choice, an elliptic marquee. Elliptic marquee allows me to do circles or ovals. And so I can see, there we go. Now this is with no feathering. If I added the feathering, it would have a soft edge. Now how do I go about making a perfect circle? If I hold Shift and drag, that allows me to create a perfect circle or a perfect square if I'm using the rectangle marquee. Holding Shift, perfect square. Okay, so that's how that goes about. Let's go with the lasso tool now, and let's get a different image. All right, so for this lesson, what I'm going to show you to do here is we're going to take this wing that I've created, and we're going to add it to a volunteer. Yes, me. I know, silly. But anyway, that's fine. So we're going to take a look at how we can cut out myself and this tiger eye and use a few different techniques for doing that, because that really is what a lot of people like doing with Photoshop. So let's start off with myself here. There are three main ways of using the lasso tool. Right? The first lasso tool, very little control to it. I would usually still go add to. I do have the option of feathering. Usually when I'm cutting out some kind of a subject, I like to add about a 2 in feathering here. Right? That's if I'm not going to go to use refine edge. More on that in just a moment. But this is typically what I would do. And then if I was going to use a lasso tool, well, basically it's extremely difficult to use. Right? You're trying to follow the edge, and you can see I'm not particularly good at this. At this age, I'm not that steady anymore. Eventually, though, I'll go all the way around, and when I do, and I get to the end, let go, and we now have our selection. I'm going to deselect that. Second choice, and this is by far the one I use the most, Polygon Lasso tool, and I'm going to get a little closer here. Okay, take my Polygon Lasso tool, and what I can do is click on a spot. I am now selected and attached to the edge. And now it's a matter of just patiently following along. Once again, if I do a feathering of 2, I'll end up with a little nicer effect. So I don't have feathering on this. I'm going to have a really sort of crisp edge on it. And here I am. I can, just by going to the edge, it will push itself over, but better control is when you hold the space bar down. Hold the space bar, and then you get the hand, and you can move it over, let go of the space bar, and you're back in control with the tool. So here I'm just about at the end. I just want to show you how you would connect this up. Right now I didn't go around the whole body, just the shoulder here to show what's going on. But when I get to this ending point, hopefully you can see this. In my ear, a little circle appears, and that's telling you that you've finished the connection. Now, if you can't see that, or if you just want the two ends to join themselves up, wherever you're at, if you double-click, it'll automatically seek the other end and make the connection. So at this point, once I've selected it, I could now go into, because I didn't do any feathering, Refine Edge. And in Refine Edge, what this will do is it will show me what I've selected. Boy, is it ever fuzzy. What's going on? Well, if I take a look over in here, I can see from previous images that I've been working on, I've made some adjustments with my selection. And every time I go to a slider, I can see down in this corner, watch what happens, I go to Smooth, the left side of the picture shows me that it's going to maintain all of the sort of bumps that I had done when I had selected. If I go more to the right, what it'll do is it will simplify it down. If you take a look at the edge here, you'll see that it's lost quite a bit of its definition, and as I go over to the other side, more of the bumps appear. So what you want to do is move these back and forth and decide to what extent do you want. The more to the right on expand that I go, the more of the background starts to show. Right? I want to keep that a little tighter. So once I get it to where I'm happy, I hit OK. I can now see the marquees here. I'm able then to go Control-C, paste it with Control-V, and we have an arm. All right, basic, no big deal. Okay, let's take a look at one more way of doing this. So underneath, we still have the magnetic lasso tool. Now with the magnetic lasso tool, I'd still go Add To, just in case we make some mistakes. So if I click on the edge of the shirt right here and just start dragging, and I'll go quite quickly here, and you can see it's staying with the arm. All right. When it hits an area where the tone, there we go, I lost my fingertip, the tone is so similar to the subject that you're trying to trace, it does get confused. So it has a limited place that it can be used. It has to be quite a defined edge. But even so, let me show you one last thing.